All right. Hi, learners. It's Mark, and I'm back again. And this time, I'm with my friend Karen.
Hi, I'm
How,
Karen.
how are you today, Karen?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. My friend Karen is Karen Craigo, and she's a poet. She writes poetry, and she is the poet laureate of the state of Missouri. That's got to be exciting, Karen.
You know what? It is pretty exciting. It's kind of a silly thing too, I think, because um, this word laureate, it kind of reminds us of a crown of laurels, like in ancient Greece. It means that you're just at the top of your field. And I have to say, there are many poets in Missouri who are much more famous and much more celebrated than I am, but I like it anyway. I will enjoy it while I am it.
You're probably the most celebrated poet in my house.
Oh, good. I'll take it.
One of the reasons I wanted to introduce you to my students is some of them come from fascinating backgrounds, and all of them have had very interesting experiences. And you're someone who thinks about those and interprets them and gives them back to people. And I thought you could talk about some of your experiences and maybe encourage them to write a little bit.
Oh, interesting. My experiences. That's a little broad. Let's see, my experiences. I could tell you about, I grew up very near where your instructor did. We're both from southeastern Ohio, southern Ohio, and we both went to school in Kentucky. So um, that's, Appalachian region that has a similar accent to what you hear around where you are. Um, and I went to graduate school in Bowling Green, Ohio after that and got what's called an MFA in creative writing, Master of Fine Arts in creative writing. And that's a degree. It's supposed to be um, the highest degree in art. Now they kind of have a PhD in this stuff, but it was a what's called a terminal degree, the highest teaching degree, so you could be a professor, with a terminal degree like that. I also have spent some time in newspapers. So I'm the editor of a newspaper. Here it is. The Marshfield Mail. You can see my byline right here. So I write newspaper stories. This one is about a cow show where kids showed off their cows. And so, okay, poetry and journalism are my two things. I also write magazine articles as what's called a freelancer. So I get paid for each story that I write, and I do some editing too. So, okay, what my whole thing is, I'm a writer and a word person, and I use that stuff to make money. That's my career, is my talent with words. So probably you've got a talent in some area where there's an area where you're just really good at it, like math. You can just make those numbers do whatever you want for you. My thing is words. It's kind of my only thing, but I do what I can with them. So does that cover it a little bit, Mark?
It covers it a little bit. I also think you're an incredible mother.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I
That's
think you're a very
important.
good friend.
Oh, thank you. I agree about you.
If we were to get some of my learners to try and write down the experience they've had in life, would you have any suggestions to guide them along the way?
Do you mean like to write a little bit about their life story?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. By the way, I think they should do that. I'll speak directly to you folks. I think you should do that because you're not here forever and you have lots of experiences and knowledge to pass along, and you should write that down. That needs to be kept somehow. I've known a lot of people near the end of their life, they become very chatty because they want you to know their stories, and they've wasted a lot of time getting them out. I think everybody has a duty to preserve a little something about their lives for posterity, for history, for the people who come after you. So I also think everyone is a writer, because I'm sure there's been a point where you've written something down. Well, ta-da, you're a writer. Ow, I keep banging my elbow. You're a writer if you write something down, even if you want to make sure you don't forget apples at the store and you've written it down. You're a writer, you've documented that, and that's all. That's the whole job description. You just document. What's my day like? How do I feel? What does this mean to me? That's not so much different than a grocery list.
A mutual teacher of ours, Michelle Boisseau, once told me that the most important thing was to write a lot of things down so when you die, you got to talk to people and they couldn't talk back.
I never heard her say that. And she has died, and she has these wonderful books that talk to me still. And I'm
She's still
delighted.
speaking to me.
Yeah, I still have her company, which matters a lot to me. So.
And this works also if you don't become a famous poet, just for family or for those around you or someone who's had a similar experience to understand.
Yeah, and even if you happen to be traveling this journey all alone and you don't have a family and you've maybe moved to here and you don't have a bunch of friends close by, you're part of history, you're part of the moment, and can document this age. Look at what's happening now with our coronavirus pandemic. This is a strange time and everything is completely different. And we have an important set of experiences that future generations can learn from. So writing it down is a kindness to those who come after, who might have similar things to go through.
And I'm not sure how it feels when you work with words, but sometimes with what I work with, it's almost a meditation just to record what's happening to you.
It is for me too. Absolutely. It's hard to talk about this because if you're not keyed into this sort of spiritual part of yourself, it just sounds like a bunch of nonsense. But for me, it's a little bit like prayer or meditation, where you just sort of settle yourself and go in and things just bubble to the surface and you can sort of skim them off the top then, right? They just sort of come up and there they are. Maybe you've never seen this stuff before, but it's in you and it rises and you put it down and suddenly you can understand things better. You can understand yourself and you can understand the world. I know of a poet named Ruth Stone. She passed away recently, very elderly at the end of her career. And she would talk about the poem and how it just came at her from across the landscape. She'd be out in the field working and she could see practically this poem coming. And she would drop everything and run to her desk because she had to catch it. And if she didn't catch it, it would roll right through to the next poet. And it wouldn't be a Ruth Stone poem then. It would, whoever had their catcher's mitt up would get the poem. There's inspiration coming at you. And if you're not in front of your keyboard or you don't have your pen in your hand, you will miss it. And it's going somewhere. Somebody's going to get it.
This reminds me of a story. A famous songwriter said that all you do is sit and pick the songs out as they come by you, and he's just glad he didn't live downstream from Woody Guthrie.
That's exactly it. Of course, your instructor and I now are talking in metaphor, right? The ideas don't actually come like tumbleweed across the landscape or like bugs that you pick out of the air, but you do have to settle yourself and you have to have some kind of implement, either your good imagination or a pen or a keyboard. You got to get it down and then you have to fix it up because it doesn't come perfect. And the art is to make it better, to take this raw material and make it really good. So, but it's not really, we're not crazy enough to think that there are like fireflies or lightning bugs of ideas all around us that we pluck out of the air. But we think we need to settle ourselves or all the stuff up here is not going to come out here with us.
So we've got two big points to writing. One is communicating with others and sharing a feeling. And the other is a kind of self-exploration.
Yes.
So writing can improve us and help us speak to help improve others.
Yeah. And you know, a rhetorician will tell you that's somebody who studies argument, right?
Hmm.
Aristotle was the first rhetorician in ancient Greece again. But somebody who looks into how we communicate would tell us that the message is not finished until somebody hears it, until there's an auditor, a reader, right? So we can write stuff all we want, but it's not done until somebody has received it and it's filtered through them and been even changed by them, right? So what I say to you, maybe you'll catch this part of it and somebody else will catch this part of it, but you're part of the creation of that message. The way you receive it is part of how it moves through the world. Just because I write it doesn't mean that I'm in charge of it. Once it's inside of you, you're in charge of it, right? The message. But so that's how we talk about classical argumentation, how we talk about communicating with another person. But as Mark says, we also just write sometimes just for ourselves, just because we feel something. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed with something and we can write it, and all this mess inside of us that makes no sense starts to make sense when we get it on the page, because then we can edit, rearrange, put things in order, and everything that's roiling around inside our spirit, inside our brain, we can make it make sense on the page. And maybe nobody will ever read it, but it's incredibly valuable nonetheless.
I like how you talked about editing. Some of our learners don't have a lot of confidence in their English, and I try to encourage them to write things down anyway. You can
Yeah.
always clean up later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. And the more you learn, the more you'll be able to do that. And you're already able to trust your ear just a little bit. Like, you know, you've been watching some TV, talking to some native speakers, and you're starting to get it, right? That's the best way to learn. I can pick up a Spanish book right now and start to learn Spanish or Greek or anything, and the book can't really teach me as much as I could learn by walking around, like Cozumel or you know, some place where they speak the language I'm trying to learn. You're in the perfect position to learn language really well, and you're developing an ear, something a book learner could never do, really. You're getting an ear. So the more you come back to your work, the more you'll be able to edit it so that it flows. And here's a secret. Some of the best writers in the English language were not English language native speakers. Vladimir Nabokov, Russian writer, such a gorgeous wordsmith. And it's because he had English as a second language and he was able to just have a different relationship with the words than a lot of people did. So that's a really good example. Joseph Conrad comes to mind too. Was he also Russian or was he Polish? He might have been Polish. Yeah, he's Polish. Joseph Conrad wrote a book called Heart of Darkness that became the movie Apocalypse Now. Master wordsmith, spoke Polish, right? But he's known as an English language author because he's so good with our language, with the shared language that we all have right now that you've joined us in it. So
I like how you talk about developing an ear and talking to native speakers. I consistently tell my students, if they want to know how people talk, ask someone what they think of the weather. That will always make people talk to you, and you can hear how they use language.
That's true. That's a very good point. I like to just sit around and when I'm in a new place, because you know, the United States is very big. So you go to Oklahoma, you're going to hear something really different than you hear in Virginia, than you hear in Ohio, than you hear in Washington, right? So I like to just go to a coffee shop and just listen, because I love this about English. It's why it's so darn hard, because we all speak a different version of it, and we just figure it's one language, but it's not. It's many, many, many languages.
And always stealing from other languages, new
That's
words
right.
all the time.
Thank you for your language. Anytime I put on pajamas, and that's a little bit of Indian, right? Or just there's so many words that we get from other languages, and it just makes our language so much more appealing.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate you joining us today, Karen. I think you've got some really good points
Thank
about
you.
why people should write things down and what we get from it personally, as well as what we can give to others.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to see you all today.
Hey, I appreciate you coming in. I knew there was nobody better than you to share the word.
I don't know about that, but I sure enjoyed talking with you folks.
Hey, it's good to see you again, and I hope to see you again soon.
All right, bye.
Be well.